All right. Mr. Pagliocco,
Mr. Mayor.
we'll start off with your initial 3-minute statement.
Great. So, Mr. Mayor, Council President, City Council members, my name is Tony Pagliocco. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity here to be an applicant for the open vacancy on the City Council. I wanted to take this opportunity and use my 3 minutes just to give you an introduction to who I am, why I'm here, and what I'm looking to accomplish by applying for this vacancy. I moved here about 7 years ago. My daughter was involved in an accident in Renton. She is paralyzed now from the waist down. She was hit by an opioid addict, and we found a home in Federal Way. The home that we found was handicap accessible and immediately showed us that this was a place that we were going to be for a long time. We were going to have to build a new life, and Federal Way gave us that opportunity. As we lived here, I've seen a number of different changes going on through the city, both with the size and both with issues going on, and that makes me concerned. And so that's why I come here today. I work currently at Boeing in the product management field. I head up a team of 22 product managers in machine learning and artificial intelligence. Before that, I worked at Hasbro for Wizards of the Coast, where I headed up mobile platforms for the game Magic the Gathering or Dungeons and Dragons. But being that, before that, I grew up in Boston. I went to school in Arizona at Arizona State. And so I bring a view of the world that many others maybe don't have. I've seen the East Coast, I've seen the West Coast, the Southwest. That allows me to bring a different perspective that many others won't have. Being a resident here in the city, I share a lot of the same challenges that they face. I'm a father of a parent of a daughter with a disability. I'm a renter. I'm a supporter of the police. I've been arrested by the police. I've seen both sides. I've seen all different angles to be able to give different perspectives, different opinions, and to bring a new vision in terms of how we can accomplish things, but at the same time be transparent, be accountable, and use the technology systems around us to help us make better decisions, make better data-driven decisions. I've always called Federal Way a city where we're almost like in a still startup phase. We've got accelerated growth, we've got accelerated challenges, but we also need to be able to build the foundation that'll help us grow to that next stage of a city. And I feel that that's where I'd be able to contribute a heavy part of that. As most of you know, I ran for council last year, and I ran on a very heavy public safety platform because I feel that for us to grow as a city, we need to address the public safety issues. It's not just about panhandling, it's not about one thing, it's a multi-pronged issue, and we need to come at it with a toolbox. There's no one-size solution fits all. And that's why, with such a diverse council that we have now, I think that my addition to that would be great because it would allow me to bring a whole set of views that we don't have. Having attended the retreat and seeing the plans for 2030 of the city becoming a tech hub, this excites me because this is where I'd be able to lend real-world expertise and at the same time help us move to a different level. So I think my time is up there, so thank you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, Council President Honda.
Thank you. What do you believe is the biggest issue facing Federal Way, and how would you suggest the council address it?
So that's an interesting question because there's two ways you could go with that. You could look at it from the perspective of there is one physical issue, meaning like homelessness, something that you would label and be able to put strategic action against. The other way you could look at it would be, as I had said previously, would be more from a holistic view. I think one of the biggest challenges that facing the city right now is confidence in government, and having that be related to transparency, having that related to communication, and we've made strides in those areas. But I work in my specialty at work is solving problems, and that sounds like a cliche, but it's what we do in product management. We deliver the best experience to the user, whether it's a game or whatever it is. Same way with the city. We need to deliver that best user experience. So when someone comes to Federal Way, if they're visiting, if they've lived here for 30 years, or if they've just moved here, they'll be able to understand that the city cares about them. They see visible progress being made in things with reduction of panhandling, with citywide cleanups, having more engagement from the community members to help foster that, and then building out programs that would help empower our youth to be able to engage and help the city accomplish some of these programs. by having it be joint based with volunteer work, public-private partnerships, and also based out of the city. So I think that by focusing on something like, confidence and clarity and transparency, these are areas that are low cost, they're high value. I would almost call them low-hanging fruit to be able to accomplish. But that allows you and gives you the credit to be able to, if a mistake happens down the road or if a bad decision is made, you're able to explain it very transparently and make the public understand that we make mistakes as well. We're all human. But at the end of the day, everyone in this room, everyone who's applied, we're here because we care about the city. We want Federal Way to be safe and a city of opportunity for everyone.
Great. Okay. What's up?
Thank you, Tony, for being here.
Thank you.
My question is, what do equity, diversity, and inclusion mean to you? And if appointed, what would you do to address it, like as a policy?
So, as national president of Omega Delta Phi Fraternity Incorporated, which is one of the nation's largest multicultural community service fraternities at 70 chapters in the U.S., I've been president since 2015, and one of my first actions when elected was creating a director of diversity and inclusion on our national board. We worked with other organizations. LULAC was one of them, the Latino Unidos Voter League, and had them help us find the right job description, find the right person who would help us move us forward from traditional fraternity life. Essentially, we had an opportunity to redefine what fraternity experiences were at colleges because we were forward-thinking in terms of our diversity and inclusion. What it means to me, is that everyone has a level shot at the playing field. You may have seen on social media or online the pictures of where there's 3 different size boxes and they're all standing and they're all, to me that resonates with me greatly because it makes sense to me. I'm a very visual person, and so I think that from a policy perspective, I think that's important for us to make sure our policy is aligned with that same sentiment, but also at the same time delivered in a way that we show that we're not trying to singular or look down one silo. We're looking at the whole community, but a fair community for everyone. As one of the, I'm not sure about the other applicants, but being Hispanic and Italian, also it would also bring that representation to the council because we have a very sizable Hispanic population in Federal Way. And for all intents and purposes, I haven't seen a voice for them outside of the arrival of recently of Centro de la Raza, and I think that's fantastic for Federal Way, and I'm looking forward to volunteering with them, but I think that's how it would coincide.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
My question is, what would you do to address the homelessness and panhandling problems in the city?
That is a great question. I'm going to address them. I'm going to give about 45 seconds to each side of it. From the panhandling side, everyone, I think, knows that I've been a very vocal critic about panhandling in the city. I've gone out and talked with panhandlers, people on the street who have pointed out to me, this person's got this problem, this person's a scammer, this person's this. I've shot video and talked with these people and gotten their permission for it. Really is that we need to look at a combination of things to handle panhandling in the city. Signs are not going to just fix it. A texting program is not going to fix it. It has to be a combination of visible public safety officials on the street helping to keep those parts of the city safe. Also, we need to seriously look at some more traffic safety ordinances and non-solicitation ordinances in the city. From a policy perspective is where usually a city will make a panhandling ordinance, the ACLU will file suit, and then it gets reversed. In this case, we have to look at ones where the ACLU is lost. And in these non-solicitation ordinances, this is where you have to essentially have a permit to be able to sell on the street or to vend on the street. This allows the firefighters to still have fill the boot. This still allows high schools to do their thing. But it would also make a very clear sign that we don't allow that area, and it also would coincide with traffic safety laws, which I think is already being done at the city level. From the homeless side, is that I think we have to look at that as being a regional issue. Federal Way is a young city, and we didn't eventually start with a homeless problem. And we've seen it filter in from different areas. And so I want to be cognizant that we need to work very closely with the region. We need to work very closely with the state. We need to give our full support to organizations like Fusion and be able to help them get to where they need to be. And by doing that, I think we'll be able to make the inroads that will be beneficial in the long run, but also be sensitive in the short term.
All right, great, thanks.
Tony, thanks for being here. Beyond the external and obvious, what unique perspective would you bring to the council?
I touched on that a little bit earlier in terms of like a perspective, but you know, having lived my life and had ups and downs and faced different kinds of challenges as we all have, I think that having that fresh perspective of a voice that doesn't want to be involved in politics, a fresh voice of someone who wants to be involved in helping the city, and I think that's a key difference. You know, I've had people ask like, "Oh, what are your hopes if you make it on the council?" I don't care about hopes past that. I care about the city. And if this doesn't work out for me today here at the city council level, there are plenty of other places where I can find a home to continue helping. I currently serve on the Human Services Commission. I was on the Civil Service Commission. I'm on the Ethics Board. I work with, I was on the King County Mobility Travel Advisory Commission for a year, plus my work with the fraternity and Rotary and different organizations in the city. I can find stuff to do. I want to make sure that, that at least from a perspective side, you know, if you combine everything from like my background, my technology, my ability to facilitate and collaborate with people of different backgrounds and belief structures, I think that makes me a candidate who can really help eliminate the divide and the polarity that we're seeing in a lot of things online and in the community, and bring us together to actually make some real decisions and make some real change.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a council member, there will be times that your opinion will differ from council consensus and community members. How would you handle this?
So this is something I'm frequently involved in my day job at Boeing, where I'm working between the business units and the technology units, and they don't speak the same language sometimes. They have different opinions on what's required versus what's necessary. I think in some of these issues where we talk about how to get in the middle of these conversations is, number one, I'm always looking for a compromise of where we can at least agree on a base principle and build off of that. Having, you know, just answered a question about perspectives, you know, my perspectives aren't going to agree with everyone's, and same way, you know, going backwards. But I like to be able to use tangible evidence to be able to say, here's the data. Like, here's data that shows that if we try this, there's this % chance of success versus this over here. And also really getting people to commit to true measurements of acceptance. It's great for us to propose plans or propose programs or ideas, but if we don't have a measurement of success that says we're going to see a reduction of XYZ by X%, or we expect to hire, you know, fill 200 new jobs, there's no way for us to tell down the road if that's working or not. And the reason why I say that is because, you know, looking at the, even looking at the Violence Prevention Committee report, they're talking about the same things from that many years ago that we're talking about today still. We need more cops. We don't feel safe. You know, I think the survey was 2.93 was the rating out of 5 of how people felt safe back then. I would love to see what that is now. And so instead of bringing this cycle of being able to just going round and round, I think where I shine is I'm able to get people of different perspectives and backgrounds and have them at least have a conversation and then go forward from there.
Okay.
Hey, Tony. So what would you do to attract business to our community that provide living wage jobs?
That's a great question. You know, one of the things we need to look at is look at our future. And besides looking at where we've been and where we are now, one of the things that the mayor has spoken about at a couple of the State of the Cities has been the upcoming UW Federal Way. And having toured most of the U.S. With my, you know, going to regional conferences for my fraternity and speaking at different engagements, one area I found an opportunity for us in this area was, number one, looking at some of our area to be able to build dormitory housing in partnership with UW and Highline. The reason being is that with the light rail coming through in a few years, this would bring up to X thousand number of people who would then come in for school, be contributors to the economy, and then go home at the end of the semester. And they do this in Denton, Texas, at the University of North Texas. It's extremely vibrant to the economy. They have 135,000 residents there, and they have the same number of police per 1,000 as we do. And their city is extremely safe. The reason why is most of that number is coming from seasonal people moving in and out of the dorms. But that would allow us to connect Highline and UW-Tacoma and have Federal Way be the home for it. Another way in terms of economic development is looking at building out who we are and looking at that technology vision for, you know, the 2030 vision and deciding how we can be the home for startups. Seattle's getting too expensive. Federal Way is an untapped resource for startups to come down here and be able to fill those spots in the mall, be able to fill some of those empty buildings and make buzz around it about new technologies and artificial intelligence and machine learning and data models, and being able to have them build programs that would help our youth and teach them the technology side of things. But my vision has always been of getting those youth programs to help find out, what does the city need? We need a dashboard, for instance. I know we have one, but as an example, we have a dashboard. We could have those types of artifacts built by the cohorts that are in these programs. So we're creating education, we're creating job growth and opportunity, we're bringing people in to spend money, and then we're building artifacts for the city. And that's a 4-in-1. And I think thinking in that mindset would help us greatly. And as an actual added note to that too, and I apologize, one of the things that does concern me, though, from an economic, is it makes that so important, is that there is, serving on the Human Services Commission, I know the number of grants that we have, that we file for, that we get awarded each year. And we need to be very cognizant that down the road, those grants might not be there, and what's our mitigation plan? How do we put all these programs together? Just recently, the Supreme Court announced that, that the federal government can withhold grant funding to states based on certain things with like sanctuary laws and stuff like that. That concerns me. I'm not sure if we've thought about that. That's a real issue. If we could see our money dry up, and even temporarily, what do we do? What's the plan? And that goes back into building the confidence of going out to the city and saying, hey, here's what we're thinking about in terms of this. And so.
Great. Okay, Council, any other follow-up questions? Council President Honda.
Thank you. You talk a lot about youth. We have more seniors in Federal Way than youth, and we are getting more seniors every single day. So what would you do for seniors in Federal Way?
So I think part of that is, number one, engaging with the senior community, maybe the senior commission, and hearing, I know the senior commission is new, but getting feedback from them on what do they identify as the main concerns are. A lot of in my private time, a lot of the volunteer service I do is with youth, so that's why I happen to have a better pulse on what their needs are. But I think, definitely identifying, making sure that transportation is available, and making sure that the key resources that they want are there, and they can communicate and be open about what their concerns are. That's where I think I would start with that.
All right, Councilmember Kopeng, and then Councilmember Kochemar.
Yeah. Tony, thank you for your time. I've got a kind of difficult question for you, but in your opening statement, you talked about being arrested. Mm-hmm. And I've read the Mirror. I've also gotten to know you and understand, I understand the, what you've done with that. But I think because this is a public meeting, and I just don't want to leave that hanging, and I'd like anything that you want to add to that, just to kind of give some perspective maybe on what you've learned, why you're willing to serve, whatever you have to say. I would appreciate having that perspective, both for myself and for the rest of the community.
Well, I'm not, we've rehashed the story about quite a bit in the media. And like I said before, the whole incident itself was extremely unfortunate and embarrassing. But I think the thing is that with everything I do, a positive or a failure, I view it as an opportunity. And I think my actions, after that DUI physical control incident, really spoke to the kind of person that I wanted to be. I never saw myself being involved with city politics or city government or, the nuts and bolts of the community. I always volunteered, but I never saw myself in that role until I moved here. I learned a lot. I don't think people understand about the things that go into it, with the counseling you have to go to, the meetings you have to attend, the random drug test that you have to go through and pass, and that you have to pay a fee every time you do that each month to go meet and get that testing done. The thousands of dollars I spent in various fines and legal fees that could have gone to so many other things. It was definitely a mistake, and it was one that, being new to this arena, there were ways I probably could have handled it better. I was open about it with people who asked me about it, and I talked about it here and there. But I always told people, like, well, what's the right way to do that? Do I put it on my campaign signs? Like, you know what I mean? And so it was a great learning experience, both from the city perspective. It was also a great learning experience for me because as my daughter was hit by someone who was an opioid addict, that should have been something that should have been far and leaps in my mind. The stuff that was going on that night and what my feelings were and all that stuff, it's sort of off to the side. Is I made a mistake, I owned up to it. I've tried to reprove myself afterwards. And I think that's actually what we encourage of everyone in this city, is we try and tell everyone in this diverse and inclusive city that if you make a mistake, that shouldn't hold you back from being able to serve or being able to lead or be able to contribute back. And my fear with this is that, and I'm glad this is on record, is that I want other people who want to get engaged with the city and who want to volunteer to not let their past hold them back and be worried that, you know, they would have to come up here and have this conversation. I would tell them just to be, to do it better than I did in some cases, and to be honest, and to just accept it. And it's what you do afterwards that defines you. It's you can't hold on to what happened in the past.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate you adding some more to that conversation.
Councilor Coach.
Thank you. So in one of your other questions, you responded that you think people should have confidence in government. Since we represent the government in Federal Way, what do you think should be the most important character, or what do you think should be the most important thing so that people have confidence in the people sitting at this dais? What do you think the most important thing should be?
So just to clarify, the most important personal trait someone should have to build confidence? I think that is something that is actually determined by the individual resident. And I'll tell you why, is that we all have different backgrounds, we have different cultures, we all see things differently. And so what one person might view as being a confidence-building action by the city, another person may view as being an attack on something. And so I think that communication is probably, communication and clarity are probably the two traits that I would say are most important to be able to instill that confidence within the city, to instill that confidence within the residents for the city. You know, like I said earlier, in my position, I work a lot with some very technical people, and I have to explain very high-level designs to business people who don't have that experience. So it's essentially I'm talking Spanish over here, and then I got to talk, you know, Arabic over here. You know, they're two totally different languages. But that's where I excel at, and I think that that's very important for the public to be able to understand and know what's going on, and also at the same time feel comfortable that their voices are being heard. So, you know, those two areas are where I would think are the strongest.
All right. Council, any other questions? Tony, would you like to a few minutes to wrap up?
Yes, thank you. About 15, 20, good? No, really, and the nuts and bolts of it is that, you know, I'm very thankful for the opportunity to be here today. I thank each and every one of you, you know, for what you do. As, you know, someone who's been engaged in the community, I've tried to distance myself from most of you since this appointment process came up, because I wanted there to be that delineation. It wasn't just social distancing. And I really, you know, one of the things is that people get very passionate about these types of things, and I trust all of you. We elected you, and I trust you that whatever decision you'll make is for the best in the city. And whether that's myself or whether that's somebody else, that's perfectly fine. I just want what's best for the city. I'm not concerned about the politics, about what goes on behind the scenes. You know, I already dealt enough with that over the last 6 months, and I really don't care for it. I want to see the city get better and move forward. I know I can contribute to that. I know that I'm one of the, I confidently feel I'm one of the stronger candidates to be able to help make a difference right away. And there's also a council full of experience and wisdom up here that will be able to tell me what I should know as a new council member, and Councilmember Tran could help me there, and also with years of like how the city has come from A to Z, from Councilmember Kochmar even. There's a lot of different views and a lot of perspectives for me to learn from. I'm excited to be able to help move this city forward, whether it's on the council or not. And I thank you for taking the time today, and I know it's going to be a long one, so I appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What's that? Yeah. Let's use the buzzer for the first 3 minutes. Just briefly, kind of a little beep. Okay, and now we have Hope Elder. Hello, Hope.
Good morning, everybody. I'm sure this is going to be a boring day for you, but for some of us, it's kind of exciting. I think most of you